Hello everybody, here we are today getting on into my Week 14 CFL picks and just covering that. So before we get started, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or the CFL, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So last week I went 3-1, nearly 4-0. Maybe this week will be kind of a similar situation or even better. And I do want to say before we get into it that I apologize for getting this one out so late. Hopefully getting it out before the start of the first game. But I've just been very busy in my personal life and it's hopefully going to be something good news that I could possibly share towards the end of the month. Stressful time, but possibly a good time. Anyway, kicking it off with the first game of the week, you have the BC Lions traveling to Montreal to play the Alouettes. This one is going to be a very exciting game. It's already a sellout crowd, as you'd expect. Montreal last week clinched a playoff spot, the first team in the league to do so, and they are playing a BC Lions team that is still, trying to find their groove. BC is currently 6-6, and they picked up a nice win over Ottawa last week, but you are still hoping to see maybe that offense start to do a little bit more work to get in a better situation. But I think this is a really good test for BC against Montreal, with the Owls being the best team in the league, 11-1. A team that is poised to probably make another deep run. This is a measuring stick type game for the Lions, seeing where they stack up against a team like the Owls at this point in the year, because about 2/3 of the season is done and the Lions still look like they're far ways off from being able to hoist the Grey Cup at the end of the season. So looking at this, I want to see whether or not BC is right there or not. But at the same time, too, I think that if they get beat pretty bad by Montreal, this could be a bad omen for the future months. Because this is a team you very well could see come November, and you would hate to think, hey, last time we played them, we got beat really bad. And I think for the Alouettes, they probably are thinking about, hey, it'd be nice to get a win here. But at the same time, too, understanding that it's not going to be the end of the world. If they end up losing this, it's just very impressive. The run that they've gone on since the end of last season, going on into this season now, they are just almost practically unbeatable. And I'm not going to hype this game up as a clash of the Titans at the moment by any means, because the records don't indicate it. Montreal probably favored here, but I do think BC has the potential to win, so just watch out for it. And in this case, I'm okay with it happening. Now, as for the second game of the week, you have the Toronto Argonauts traveling to Ottawa, and this one is actually probably more of an exciting game for both sides, as you have two teams that are positioned really close by each other out east, as you have, of course, Ottawa being in second place, Toronto being in third. Toronto has won the division 3 years in a row now, and they're coming off of a painful loss to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I know in last week's video, I said Hamilton could play upset to Toronto. That's exactly what they did here. Meanwhile, Ottawa is looking to bounce back from a pretty bad loss. And in this game, I think it's going to be interesting to see if Ottawa can kind of keep up that fortress mindset of, oh, we're at home, we're going to win. Get a little bit of breathing room between them and Toronto, and seeing whether or not they are able to beat a team like Toronto. Because again, kind of a measuring stick game for the Argonauts, the Red Blacks, as Toronto with Chad Kelly there is a team that they probably will face come November, or at least during the playoffs and whatnot. So I think that in BC's case, it's like, oh, we might run into them, whereas in Ottawa's case especially, it's practically guaranteed that they're going to run into Toronto at some point during the playoffs. You want to be able to say, we can take care of business, and do it with a pretty convincing win. Jamal Murrow just signed with the team after he failed 2 physicals, with the Stamps. So that will be interesting to see if he provides any adjustment in the future going forward for them. I don't have a whole lot to say for this one other than that I hope it's going to be a good one. I've just been very busy the past few weeks, so I haven't been able to keep up with the storylines, but I really do hope that this is a great divisional clash. Now, as for the third game of the week, you have Saskatchewan taking on Winnipeg. This one is set to be a doozy as well, because of the fact that you have a rematch from last week, because of the fact that Saskatchewan is, I think, 0-5-1 over their past 6 games. And Winnipeg, meanwhile, is 6-2 over their last 8. This is going to be a pivotal game, mainly for Saskatchewan, because at this point, you start to look in the rear view mirror. Wouldn't you know it, Edmonton, maybe they could kind of be creeping around there. And then just understanding that if Winnipeg wins this, they're probably going to be well positioned to at least finish second in the division. It's odd seeing what's going on with the Riders, but it's also curious to see how Kolaros will do, as he is set to start. And you have to remember that at one point, Winnipeg had a nice lead in last week's game, and you're kind of wondering if momentum will continue one way, whereas for Winnipeg, it's in their favor, whereas Saskatchewan, it's against. This is what I talked about, though, with Corey Mace and the Riders, seeing if he could change what's going on here. 3 years in a row, Saskatchewan get off to a good start, and then they have a bad stretch that dooms their season. They're not in doomsday territory yet, but with this loss to Winnipeg, it would certainly make things harder for them, knowing that they probably aren't going to be hosting a playoff game if that's the case. Again, there's still so much in the air right now, so I don't want to say anything's going on that's too crazy here, but I'm going to be picking Winnipeg in this one. And then the fourth and final game of the weekend is Edmonton and Calgary playing each other. This comes after Edmonton was able to get the win, and this also comes with the news that Jake Maier is not going to be starting for the Stampeders. And I do think this is a big decision to make, but at the same time too, as is the case with the Rough Riders, Calgary could be seeing their season slip away from them a little bit, and they might be uncomfortable with that. And if that's the case, that's certainly understandable. And in this case, they're probably uncomfortable with the fact that McLeod Bethel-Thompson threw for a ton of yards last week, had 3 passing touchdowns, and the Elks are in a spot right now that if they win, they're 5-8. And that's kind of what's interesting here too. We talked about how the season was over for them, and now they're just kind of creeping up into a bad Western Division, where if they get a win now, they really do seem like a team that could possibly go out there and maybe get a playoff spot. I still think it's going to be pretty murky for them. But Calgary could be looking at the reality too that they could fall to the bottom of the division this year, and after last season keeping the playoff streak alive despite having a losing record, the fall to the last spot out west would be just crazy. So we will see how that goes, of course, too, seeing if Calgary can maybe run the ball a little bit more and seeing if that is better for them. Maier did have 4 interceptions last week, so less turnovers could be a good thing for the Stamps as they try to figure out exactly what's going wrong for them, much like Saskatchewan. So for this week, I'm going to be picking the Alouettes, the Red Blacks, I guess for now. I feel really iffy about that one. The Blue Bombers, because again, momentum. And then finally the Elks, because kind of like what I said about last week, where there could be a lot of points scored. I do believe that Edmonton can score a lot of points again and maybe be in a spot where things are looking kind of rosy for them. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this week's news and all this stuff? As again, there's a lot of developments about who will start, who won't start, who's going to be, going on the 6 games injured list. As I do believe that guys like Austin Mack are dealing with injuries too. So just a lot of stuff happening at a spot where I'm just very, very busy outside of this. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe and have a great night. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.